Our next speaker is Cian, who is the founder and president of Nearform. Cian is an extremely passionate, pragmatic, and funny person. For sure, very funny. You can spend a whole evening learning really weird things from Cian. Some of which, in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have learned from him. But then, on the other hand, it was a really funny evening. I think I met him the first time at NodeConf EU 2017 in Ireland, in Kilkenny, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, on a small village. He's running these events for, I think, 12 years now, which is a great opportunity for the Node community to come together and celebrate. He's also extremely passionate about open source, and the most recent success that he had with the company was launching the COVID tracking app for Ireland, where all of this is essentially built on top of Node.js and JavaScript, and all of this is open source. So please welcome Cian and enjoy the talk.
Hi everyone, welcome to my talk for WorkerConf. My talk today is breaking chains of transmission with JavaScript, and just like to thank the organizers for WorkerConf for putting on such a nice conference and asking me to do a talk. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Cian Maidín. I'm Irish. I'm living in Waterford, which is in the southeast of Ireland. I'm 42 years old. I live in a small little kind of seaside town, and I'm married, and I've got 3 kids, 1 girl and 2 boys. I founded Nearform, and also I started NodeConf EU a couple of years ago. So a little bit about Nearform. I started a company 9 years ago from a small town in the southeast of Ireland. Always really loved open source, always loved the internet and the web platform, and spent a lot of time on airplanes for the first few years, getting out there and getting people to know who we are and what we do. And as the company has grown and we've been really successful, we've grown to just about 200 people now. Everything we do is remote. We've people in about 20 countries, and we make our money by designing, building, operating primarily web and mobile platforms that live on the cloud. We're big contributors into the Node.js ecosystem. I think we were the biggest contributor for 3 or 4 years in a row there. We also contribute to the React ecosystem. We really love open source, and we think it's really important thing to be involved in. So anyway, the story, that's not why you're here. So we're here today to talk about how we created the most widely used exposure notification app in the world in 2020. And all the experiences that were involved in that happening. It was pretty amazing year. Yeah, I guess like the way it started, beginning of 2020. I went on a business trip to London at the end of January. On the way over, I felt my throat was getting a bit sore. I spent like 3 or 4 days in London, and progressively over the 3 or 4 days, I was kind of getting more unwell day on day. And when I arrived home to my family that weekend, I was like trying to make out like I felt okay, but I really wasn't. And so I got home on Friday night. On Saturday, I was really sick. On Sunday, I didn't want to do anything, but I had a fever. So I went to my doctor, and my doctor said to me that I had a chest infection and I had a really bad flu. And he gave me antibiotics and various things to take. And I went home, and I spent a week in bed where I felt really, really, really ill. And strangely enough, my wife also got sick the same week, and she went to her doctor, and her doctor said you have a chest infection and you have a flu, and so on. And so in my week that I spent in bed, of course, I was on YouTube and I was on all these news websites, and I was reading about this virus and all this stuff coming out of Wuhan in China, and of course I was like going, there's a pandemic coming, and my wife was looking at me like I was crazy. She's like, yeah, right, go back to bed, pandemic, yeah, whatever. And so it took me about 4 or 5 weeks from getting sick that week to get any way back to normal again. Like, I tried to go back to work the next week, went back for 1 or 2 days, ended up back in bed again with a fever. And I honest to God, I don't think I've been that unwell ever in my life. And so about a month later, when they announced that there was a pandemic, my wife was, I was able to say, I told you so to my wife, and hopefully she's going to listen to me from now on when I tell her all these things, but probably not. So it was a very strange time. I mean, around March of 2020, if you remember back in the media, we had like all the terrible things happening in Italy. And everybody was really scared, nobody knew what was going on, and everybody felt pretty powerless. And in Ireland, like, things are pretty serious. They canceled the St. Patrick's Day festival parade, which is like, that's like Christmas in Ireland. So if they cancel that, it's like really serious. And so on the weekend of the 20th of March of 2020, I got a phone call, and it was somebody that worked for the Irish government, and they were like, we've heard that you guys are really good at building applications, and you're the best the best in Ireland, and can you help us to build an app? And and it was somebody from the Department of Health in Ireland. They decided they wanted to build an app to help to detect the spread of the coronavirus using Bluetooth. And so I was like, of course I'll help if I can. And so this was a Sunday, and I called some of my team on Sunday night. Some of our designers started to pull together some designs and capture some requirements for an app, and we started working on the COVID tracker for the Irish government. And I suppose this is the story really of how we built it and what happened and all the experiences of working on COVID tracker. So to go into kind of some of the principles that we really discussed in those early weeks when we were looking at building this application to deal with coronavirus, we decided that at that time everyone felt very, very powerless, and that whatever we built would have to have some level of utility where we would empower people as much as we possibly could. So we wanted to put a daily health check-in into the app. We wanted a symptom tracker in the app. And we also wanted to put some information on what the infection rates were like in the locality that somebody is living in. And we felt this is really important, that the app had to have more than just like proximity alerts for exposures in it. We needed to put more functionality into it. We also realized that privacy was going to be really important. People really don't trust the mobile platforms and the technology platforms these days. So everything in the app would have to be privacy first, and any of the features on data sharing or everything would be really clearly labeled and optional. And then the trust and transparency would be hugely important in the process of building this piece of software. Because if people don't trust, something like this type of tool, nobody will adopt it, and you need like some level of numbers of users for it to be useful. And finally, then we knew we had to cater for people from very young age to older ages. So we were kind of designing from 15 to 85 years old. And so the journey started on the 22nd of March. and we went live eventually on July the 6th. And so here's some of the activities that we had to take part. First of all, we built an alpha version of the app by April the 1st. So approximately 10 days from that Sunday night, we had a fully working, COVID application. We had to build our own custom Bluetooth implementation. We were testing this thing, and then later on in April, around the 20th of April, Google and Apple announced that they were going to release their own exposure notification API inside iOS and Android. And so we had to re-engineer everything, which wasn't a bad thing, actually, because without the operating system level support for the exposure notification protocol, probably wasn't going to work. And so from there, then in May and June, we had to basically rebuild everything and test everything again. And we do a whole bunch of other things. So we had to cater for multiple languages inside the application. Initially, it was 2 languages, Gaelic and English. We'd carry out accelerated behavioral studies. So we really had to look at like what data were we going to graph inside the application? What was the messaging to people who are downloading it? Like things like, am I protecting myself by using the app, or am I protecting other people by using the app? And to test these messages and see what was going to resonate with people. And then, really importantly, we produced this data protection impact assessment, and that landed 3 weeks before the launch of the application. So this was like a human readable document that explained to everybody exactly what data was being shared and what wasn't inside the application. And then also we published the source code 3 weeks before launch, so people could download the source code, build it, see what's going on, it would like hit those objectives of trust and transparency for people. So here are some screenshots from the COVID tracker app. You can see the landing screen on the left-hand side. It gives you some like numbers around the daily check-ins, who's using the app. You've got like some of the sign-up screens inside in the app. Again, it's like everything is optional. And then some screens around contact tracing, how many people have used the app. And finally, then a close contact alert screen. And these are just like a couple of the screens from the app that we launched. And so eventually we got to this huge and exciting launch day, which was on the 6th of July. And you see on the screen there, this is the Health Minister for Ireland, looking all happy holding the app. And we launched the app, and it went really well. So it's interesting to see some of the tweets that day. First, data protection, really not bad. Data protection information notice is written in admirably plain English. Users can opt out a lot, and it doesn't access any of your files or camera or anything. Also, the code is built in React Native and TypeScript, and it's under MIT license. So this is really important for people to start to trust the app and trust what was going on in it. And then the app registration screen. So on the day of launch, we got to about 1 million users within 24 hours of the first launch. And everybody really just kind of decided to adopt it and start to use it. And had about 20 million API requests in the first 24 hours. So it was a lot of fun, like, and it was nice to see the level of adoption in such a short space of time. So it was a huge success, the launch of the app in Ireland. Probably one of the proudest moments I've had as in my career, and being actually able to do something to help someone in their life and all that good stuff. And so where do we go from there? Well, we wanted to scale the application, and we knew that like once we'd solved the problem, that we really wanted to help as many countries as possible to adopt the technology. And so we focused on how could we help other governments to roll out this type of solution really, really quickly. So we took the approach of taking as much friction out of the process as possible, making everything as cookie cutter as possible, having like playbooks, run books, kind of recipe books really for success for how you do this. I think it's a huge case for open source in general. We were very lucky working with the HSE that they were open to open source. So they created they actually created a GitHub repo as part of this project and put the source code up in GitHub. And the case for open source is really strong. One country builds this, they test it. In Ireland, we had like the Irish Army testing the app, we had the police force testing the app, we had all these things, and the Department of Health had validated the app and all this kind of stuff. And so when you get the source code to the app, you're getting all that, you're getting all the work that's gone into it as well. And so, it made a lot of sense for others to adopt it rather than build something from scratch. The other thing we did is we really focused on, this was not about making money for us. So the cost per system after we did the original implementation, which was less than €1 million, I think it was about 800,000 euros. The cost per system thereafter was about 25% of this. So we really focused on, well, how can we help people quickly? We tried to get it down to being able to do a deployment in a month. And one thing that's really interesting is that as we started to do more and more implementations, like each implementation had some various level of requirements, and they would contribute features back into the code base that would be useful to the other people that have been contributing in. So it's a real case study. In terms of app launches, we launched in all these countries last year. So Ireland, Scotland, Jersey, North of Ireland, Gibraltar, and then in the US, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And then at the end of the year, New Zealand actually were able to take the source code and deploy it themselves, because the level of investment was sufficient in the project at that stage that it was easy to pick up and use. So some of the milestones in the project, we started on March 22nd. Can you build an app in your form? Yes, we can. We launched COVID Tracker on the 6th of July. On the 20th of July, we took the step with the Irish government to donate the source code to a new Linux Foundation project, which was important in the US context. We went live in the north of Ireland on the 31st of July, and Ireland and North of Ireland were the first two countries in the world to use an interoperable format and to share code, and then all the other launches happened thereafter. And so when we created the open source project, we wanted to put a little bit of green magic into it, because we are leprechauns and we're from Ireland. So we called it COVID Green, and it's green for Ireland, but it's also green for the map of the color of the map going back to a nice green color. That was quite a proud moment to say the least, to make that happen. So some highlights of the project. So in Ireland, about 40% of the adult population used the COVID Tracker app. The app definitely saved lives, definitely helped reduce the number of people who died and got really sick, and really helped to break chains of transmission. And again, like I was saying there, very proud moment that Ireland and the north of Ireland were the first two countries in the world to have two systems interoperating. So you can download the North of Ireland COVID app, and you can come down over the border to the south of Ireland, and if you get an exposure notification while down south, it'll come back around when you're up north again, and vice versa. In summary, I think we were, nobody could have foreseen people could have foreseen a pandemic happening, but we'll be much more prepared when the next one happens, and there will be another one. The big learnings for me is infrastructure like COVID Green, like these types of apps, they should be in the public domain, and open source is perfect for the public domain. And the really exciting thing is that this approach and this way of building something, open sourcing it, and then sharing it and helping others to roll it out has created this huge set of new connections in public health. So who would have thought at the end or the beginning of 2020 that the people working for the Irish Department of Health would be talking to people in Pennsylvania and they would be sharing ideas in source code about how to build and deploy and solve these problems around exposure notifications with one another. Like, and it's really powerful, like, to connect those people via open source. And I think like a model for the future, like a really exciting model for the future, is one where, you know, last year we connected 10 or 11 government organizations, and they've started to use the same piece of infrastructure, and they've started to contribute to the same piece of infrastructure as one another. I think maybe a model in the future is where we create bigger networks of these types of organizations, and where, you know, the big thing is people are the same everywhere that you go. Like, fundamentally, there are nuances and differences, but, you know, a lot of the technology that's needed in one country is going to be the same as another. So can we get to a place where we build these big networks of public health or public organizations, where one person in a network or one organization in a network builds something that's useful, and everybody else gets a benefit from it, you know? And I think that hopefully is going to be the future for technology for public good. I hope my talk has been interesting, and it's been a pleasure to be able to present at this conference. And I'd like to thank the organizers. And if you have any questions or follow-ups, I'll be available on Discord after the talk and later on today. Thank you very much.